Consensual non-consent, CNC. Imagine you're home alone, relaxing on the couch, scrolling through memes, when your partner suddenly bursts through the door, grabs you, and throws you over their shoulder like a warrior claiming their prize. Scandalous. Your heart is racing, your breath quickens, and for a moment you feel like the leading character in a spicy romance novel. Except you agreed to this beforehand. This is basically what consensual non-consent, CNC, entails, and it is a fantasy where things seem forbidden, but every single detail has been discussed, agreed upon, and greenlit like a traffic signal at 2 a.m. Basically, CNC is a role-play fantasy that involves one person taking the other in a way that appears forceful, unexpected, or even forbidden. However, both partners are fully consenting adults who have planned, discussed, and set clear boundaries beforehand. CNC is the ultimate power play fantasy. One partner gets to feel like an absolute alpha, while the other gets to feel totally desired and irresistible. Public encounters. Let's be honest, there's something undeniably hot about getting frisky where you shouldn't. Maybe it's the risk of getting caught, the rush of doing something taboo, or just the sheer thrill of turning a mundane setting into a personal playground. Whatever the reason, the fantasy of extreme public isn't just about breaking the rules, but about pushing boundaries, heightening sensations, and making every moment feel like the climax of an erotic thriller. Now, I'm not saying you should go full rated X in broad daylight in the middle of a packed subway, because that's how you end up on a very different kind of registry. And at its core, this fantasy isn't just about the where, it's about the how. It's the whispered demands in a crowded space, the stolen touches when no one's looking, the slow burn of knowing you have to hold back until you can't. It's a mix of control and complete surrender, which means the tension and release would be absolutely mind-blowing. Plus, the fantasy of extreme public sex isn't just about physical pleasure, it's about rebellion. It's about taking something prim and proper like park benches, a library, or an expensive gala, and turning it into a filthy, passionate playground. Gloryhole fantasy. Just imagine walking into a room where the air is thick with anticipation, and in front of you there is a smooth, unassuming wall, except for one intriguing detail. On the wall there is a hole, just big enough for your privates to fit in. And on the other side, you don't know who's on the other side, and they don't know you. There's no small talk, no expectations, just pure physical pleasure wrapped in an aura of mystery. This is basically what the Gloryhole fantasy is, and it's a situation where one person engages in an intimate act with another through a small hole in a partition or wall. The key element of this fantasy is anonymity, as neither person can see the other fully, which adds to the mystery and excitement. People fantasize about this because there's no judgment or pressure. Without eye contact or body language to worry about, some people feel less self-conscious. No awkward, "was it good for you?" moments. Just raw pleasure that'll make the experience more intense. However, for most people, the Gloryhole fantasy lives in the realm of erotic imagination, roleplay, and controlled environments. In reality, the idea of anonymous encounters comes with concerns, safety, hygiene, and consent being the biggest. But some couples still recreate the fantasy safely in private settings, using blindfolds or barriers to simulate the experience while keeping control over the situation. Others explore it through erotica, VR, or guided fantasy play. Swinging. Swapping, sometimes called partner swapping or wife-husband swapping, is a simple fantasy and sometimes a real-life practice where two committed couples agree to exchange partners for an intimate experience. Think of it as a double date with a very unexpected ending. Some swaps even happen between close friends, while others between strangers at exclusive events, and some couples even find their swap mates online. The point is that they all have to have one key ingredient, which is mutual mutual consent and trust. People fantasize about swapping to spice things up. I mean, long-term relationships are amazing, but let's be real. Sometimes the bedroom menu needs a little extra seasoning, and swapping can add that extra zing to make things more interesting. And unlike cheating, where secrets and lies create distance, swapping is all about openness and honesty. Some couples find that exploring fantasies together brings them closer, because nothing says teamwork like high-fiving your partner across the room mid-action. Living furniture. Imagine walking into someone's bedroom and seeing a lavish armchair in the corner, but instead of wood and cushions, it's a person. Yep, they're just sitting there perfectly still, waiting for someone to take a seat. Literally. Yep, some people fantasize and sometimes would even go as far as fulfilling this desire if they get the opportunity. The core of this fetish basically revolves around total objectification, control, submission, and endurance. While you might be wondering why anyone would want to be a human ottoman, there's actually some deep psychological satisfaction in it. Some people get pleasure from being utterly useful and submissive, while others enjoy the power dynamic of owning a living, breathing couch. Plus, let's be real, who wouldn't want furniture that moans? Pregnancy fantasy. Just picture seeing a pregnant woman and getting turned on. And no, it's not because you're a creep, but because something about the fullness of their curves, the radiant glow of their skin, and the undeniable sense of life and abundance gives you a thrill. Basically, a pregnancy fantasy is when someone finds the idea of a pregnant body deeply arousing. Whether it's the round belly, the enhanced curves, or even the symbolism of fertility. A lactation fantasy takes things a step further, where the act of producing or consuming breast milk becomes part of the erotic experience. Some people enjoy the idea of nurturing, submission, or primal intimacy, while others simply love the sensual aspect of it. For some, it's about the softness and fullness of a pregnant body. For others, it's the deeply nurturing and intimate nature of lactation. And for some, it's simply a fantasy tied to the idea of creation, life, and abundance. Either way, one thing's for sure, this is one fetish that knows how to grow on you. Voyeurism and exhibitionism. Picture this. You're at a fancy hotel enjoying your drink at the rooftop lounge when you suddenly notice a couple in the penthouse across the way. The curtains are open just enough to give a clear view of some, let's say, very enthusiastic cardio. Voyeurism, the art of accidentally looking, is basically a simple fantasy that deals with the thrill of watching others engage in intimate activities, usually without them knowing. Think of it as being a live audience to a private show, except you don't need to buy a ticket, just a good hiding spot. People who fantasize about this enjoy the forbidden fruit effect, as seeing what you shouldn't be seeing makes it 10 times hotter. Now, on the flip side, exhibitionists get their thrill from being watched. If you've ever had a moment where you thought, what if someone saw me right now? And it made you excited rather than terrified? Welcome to the club. Exhibitionists love the adrenaline rush of putting on a show. It's like being a rock star, but instead of playing guitar and singing, you're, well, doing something else with your hands and mouth. Being the center of attention, the excitement, the risk, and the thrill in knowing that others find you desirable makes this something a lot of people fantasize about. Car love, mechanophilia. Mechanophilia is the sexual attraction to machines, especially cars, motorcycles, and other vehicles. So, while most people dream of driving a Ferrari, mechanophiles dream of dating one. When they say they love the way the car engine purrs, they actually mean it. For some, it's about the curves of a sports car, the power of an engine, or even the feel of cold, hard metal, because who needs soft, warm flesh when you can have chrome? For others, it's the revved-up sound of an idling engine that gets their motor running, literally. And just like any other sexual fantasy, this one starts with deep admiration. Some people personify their vehicles, giving them names and talking to them, which, let's be honest, a lot of us do. But for mechanophiles, that admiration shifts into something more intimate. A connection that's both emotional and, well, physical. Mechanophiles may engage in physical touch that involves caressing the steering wheel like it's their lover's hand, verbal affection, and some even have intimate encounters. Yep, exactly what you're thinking. Sometimes with tailpipes involved, which, for safety reasons, we do not recommend. In fact, a man named Edward Smith, who is a self-proclaimed mechanophile, actually claimed to have been intimate with over 1,000 cars, and his long-term partner was a Volkswagen Beetle named Vanilla. Plus, technically, if humans can fall in love with AI chatbots and anime characters, is it so shocking that someone might develop a steamy relationship with a 1969 Chevy Camaro? I think not. Mind control and hypnosis fantasy. So let's get something straight. Hypnotism doesn't actually involve a mysterious voice telling you to cluck like a chicken, unless that's your thing. And when it comes to intimacy, being hypnotized means surrendering control voluntarily so you can experience something a little more tantalizing. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not losing your free will here. It's more like allowing yourself to experience a deep state of relaxation where you're opened to heightened sensations. Think of it as mental consent to let go of your usual reservations and let the vibes take over. This is simply appealing to people because the act of letting go can be incredibly freeing. You know those moments when you just stop caring about everything and lose yourself in pleasure? Being hypnotized taps into that same sensation of freedom. Except this time, you're not just zoning out on Netflix, you're zoning into pure intimacy. And it's also a little about trust, because when you let someone take control over your mind, it's like trusting them to steer you right into Pleasure Island, where all your senses are heightened and your inhibitions are totally off the map. It is this idea of letting go of control that's the turn on. It's like being given permission to forget all the responsibilities of the day and just be, in the most indulgent way possible. Giantess microplay. Giantess microplay, sometimes just called size play, is basically a simple fantasy where one partner is significantly larger or smaller than the other. Some people imagine themselves as tiny at the mercy of an all-powerful giantess or giant. Others picture themselves as massive, dominant figures towering over a much smaller partner. It's a playful, imaginative fetish that blends elements of power dynamics, dominance, submission, and the thrill of extreme size differences. And no, it's not just about wishing your partner could grab you like a gummy bear and pop you in their pocket. People are drawn to this because when the size difference is extreme, things like touch, breath, and even the sound of a heartbeat become larger-than-life experiences. Imagine feeling their breath wash over you like a warm breeze, or hearing their voice rumble like thunder. It's intimacy on an epic scale. Pet play. Let's say you come home after a long day and your partner greets you at the door, on all fours, wagging an invisible tail and looking up at you with big, eager eyes. They even let out a playful bark, waiting for you to scratch behind their ears. That's basically what pet play is all about, and it's a type of role play where one partner takes on the persona of an animal, often a dog, cat, pony, or even something more exotic, while the other partner acts as their owner, trainer, or caretaker. It's a mix of power dynamics, submission, and playful fun with an emphasis on embracing the instincts of a pet. Now, to be clear, pet play is not bestiality, but strictly involves human partners role-playing as animals in a way that taps into fantasy, power exchange, and sometimes just good old-fashioned silliness. Some people just want to escape all sorts of human drama like stress, overthinking, and responsibility. No bills, no emails, just rolling around and enjoying the moment. I mean, who wouldn't want a break from human life? ASMR and whispering. ASMR, whose full name is Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, is basically a brain massage through sound. It's that delightful tingling sensation people get when exposed to certain noises, like whispering, soft tapping, or someone gently brushing a microphone like they're petting a tiny invisible kitten. Now, some people use ASMR to relax, to sleep, or even to cope with stress, but others they get turned on by it. Yes, for some, whispering and ASMR sounds aren't just soothing, they're downright seductive. It's a mix of intimacy, anticipation, and the way a well-placed breathy whisper can send shivers straight down to your, well, wherever you like your shivers sent. And, well, whispering, on the other hand, has always been inherently intimate. It means someone is close enough to your ear to share a secret, a desire, or just breathe against your skin in a way that makes your stomach do a little somersault. It's the verbal equivalent of a slow, teasing caress. In fact, a well-placed whisper can feel like a tickle in your brain, except this tickle can sometimes lead to other sensations. And just like there are different ASMR triggers, there are different ways whispering can be used in an intimate way. There's the tease whisper that's slow, deliberate, and just enough breathiness to make your ear feel personally seduced. Then there's the dominant whisper that's a firm, commanding, close to your ear with just enough authority to make you shiver. Some people even add mouth sounds like subtle breaths, lips smacking, or light exhalations, all meant to create maximum tingles with minimal effort. To enjoy this kink, though, some people do it during intimacy by whispering dirty talk. Then there's the binaural play, where your partner keeps moving from one ear to the other like auditory edging. Dominance and submission. DS. Let's say you're at a fancy restaurant with your partner. You reach for the menu, but before you can decide between steak or salmon, he or she leans in and whispers, "You'll have the steak. Medium rare, no arguments." Now, in most situations, that might come off as controlling and rude. But in the right context, with the right person, and with just the right amount of authority in their voice, that's not controlling. That's downright thrilling. You see, DNS is all about the exchange of power in an intimate setting where one person, the dominant, takes control while the other, the submissive, gives up control willingly. It is not about manipulation or coercion, it's about trust, pleasure, and sometimes a little playful punishment. And the best part? Everything is built on trust and consent. If you've ever fantasized about being in charge or being told exactly what to do, you might just have a thing for DNS. People who practice or fantasize about DNS just love the thrill of power exchange. When you're in a heightened state of submission or dominance, everything feels 10 times more intense. We're talking touch, words, and even the way someone looks at you. You should also know that DNS isn't just about physical actions, but it's also about the mental game and foreplay. A simple, "you will wait until I say so," can send shivers down a spine before anything even happens. The Schrödinger's climax fantasy. Let's start with a quick science refresher. Schrödinger's cat is a thought experiment in quantum mechanics where a cat in a box is both alive and dead at the same time until you open the box and observe it. Now, replace the cat with you, and instead of life and death, the mystery is whether you've reached the peak of pleasure or not. That's right, the Schrödinger's climax fantasy is all about existing in a state where you both have and haven't finished at the same time, hovering at the edge of pure euphoria but never quite collapsing into certainty. This fantasy revolves around the idea of delayed gratification and pleasure suspense. It's not just edging, it's the quantum mechanics of intimacy, where the laws of cause and effect get all tangled up. Your body says yes, but your partner says not yet. You think it's happening, but then the moment collapses into uncertainty again. It's a pleasure in flux, a teasing game where you don't know if you're about to finish or if you're trapped in an infinite loop of anticipation. Now, you're probably wondering why anybody would do this to themselves, but the truth is, it is deliciously evil. You see, the feel-good chemical dopamine thrives on the chase, so the longer you build anticipation, the more your brain gets flooded with feel-good chemicals. Plus, the mystery makes it hotter. Your body doesn't know what's happening, so every little touch feels magnified. This fantasy works best with a partner who enjoys the art of torturous teasing, or if you have insane self-control. You'd have to build the anticipation with lots of touching, teasing, and moments of almost getting there. Introduce the uncertainty and make it feel like it's going to last forever. So when you finally open the box, The release would be so intense it might just break the space-time continuum.